Find your flow, follow the map. Mile high dreaming's got your back. Denver skies, trailhead pride. This is your moment. Can't
Thank you all. Thank you to Marty for your gracious introduction, and thank you to Aaron for tech support. We all know as technical experts that without tech support, we are simply floating around trying to say smart things to other people and having them believe us. So today, and my presentation this morning is mostly sort of a review of my history and the learnings from it. So from a grateful and humble space, I humbly admit some ways to sort of make your insights and your analytics in Salesforce more delectable, more appetizing to the people around you. Want a big shout out to all of our sponsors. You will see some great, wonderful names out there. If you have not done so already, please do stop by their booths, talk to them. I view this as sort of like field research. I essentially just think, hey, if I'm at a farmer's market, right? How many of you guys do farmer's market on the weekends? You go around, but you realize half the fun is like just going and buying some fun fruit and veg, some fiber. But really part of the time is like you actually want to read the room. You want to get a sense of stuff. So like go and talk to these folks and just get a sense of who they are, what they do. Do they know what the heck they're talking about? Pitch them your hardest problem. Say, how would you make this valuable? Same way you would do at a farmer's market. Go and stand to stand and imagine this person's trying to sell their fruit and wares. But have some fun with it. This is me. One way to think about this today is decision-making as a service. So in one sense, there's this big data version of clouds out there, and there's all this complexity. And I'm wanting to sort of take all those items and sort of bring the level of abstraction, bring the level of complication down to a level of eating, drinking, and making food. If you were wanting to sort of promote this to a user that maybe isn't interested in food or a stakeholder, you might say you're trying to provide decision-making as a service. Because at the end of the day, we understand that most people are eating the information that you provide to them on screen, and they're making decisions from it. So in one sense, if the food methodology is not really working, we'll sort of scoot back to decision-making. So raise your hand if you think you can actually tell me how data comes into your org. Not that you're going to actually line them out, but like raise your hand if you can actually consistently sort of say, like, I can actually tell you how that record, that contact, that opportunity came in. Let's just get a show of hands. Give me a sense. You know, sort of kind of like maybe like I even have my own Salesforce org in the software firm that I'm at, but it's hard to understand that even sometimes because it's coming from lots of different angles. So in one level, it's coming in the back entrance of your kitchen. And if you are a restaurant, if your Salesforce org is serving people on a consistent basis, you would say you've got customers that are coming in one end and a lot of data coming into the different space. And you can see based on my wonderful AI-inspired image, those could be Excel files, those could be data bits, those could be APIs. Back in the days when Boomi was one of the main sort of Salesforce sponsors, these could be sort of APIs that you've written to get data in and out of your instance. Now, one of the things we understand is that the people in the kitchen in your restaurant are the ones that actually have their hands on the data. They're the ones that can actually control and understand how this works together, how this makes sense. We understand that they have a full sort of kitchen supplement of tools. But at the bottom line of things is you're working really hard with all this data and all these reports and analytics to feed people, right? If you were to think of the people that you're organizing today in your instance, who would you guys say are the customers that you're feeding and that are most important to impress? Could you guys like say, who do you have in mind when you're thinking about people you're feeding with data, reports, and analytics? Any call outs or hand raised? Like who's somebody that you're thinking of feeding right now? Nice and loud? Sales. Everybody loves salespeople. I don't know. Why do you guys love salespeople so much? It's just something about us. Like people just, they bring in the bacon. Salespeople, right? So all of this work, a lot of effort. We've got caramelizing onions. We've got people chopping stuff. We've got a lot of people. And in the back, you can see the boxes of fresh data sort of coming into the instance. And food is data. Everybody can eat it. In your Salesforce instance, there's some questions that are going to emerge natively as you sort of go to your own kitchen in your domicile, or you go to a restaurant. Like all these kinds of things start to come up. Who's eating? Who's being served? Who can serve themselves? Who can eat? Who's allowed in the kitchen? And we're going to sort of dive into that as we decide what are we actually serving today. So one of my other sort of big loves in life as it relates to my stance in the Salesforce space is data literacy. Data literacy at its lowest level is the ability to understand, access, make decisions with, and even argue with or communicate with data. Data cloud, from data cloud to Excel and anywhere in between, if your team has sort of consistent sort of increases of data literacy, they are more capable in making decisions, in doing their work, in performing the outcomes that you've hired them to do. And if they are at smaller levels of data accessibility, as you can sort of see on the left-hand side, there's stages to it. And we all understand the first time we opened an Excel file, the first time we built a pivot chart and we learned some of these initial skills, you got to move your team and you got to move your entire organization through the stages of sort of data literacy. If you do some Googling and look up some information online, this would basically say data accessibility is the starting point. It moves into descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, predictive analytics, and then prescriptive analytics. We're going to talk about how to lead your team through that today. How many of you guys have a reporting services team in your org? Or that's a term that you use internally, right? A lot of times, some of our higher ed customers in our space in Appsona have a reporting services team. These are like the go-getters, the gangsters, the people that can sort of like create reports from anything and everything. You give them data files, data lakes, Tableau Next. They're the ones that can sort of make it work. And this is sort of what you're envisioning. You're saying, hey, we're going to bring out a fine meal of carefully curated dashboards of information that's just what they want to see, when they want to see it, and here they want to see it. And you even have sort of a table service, a person in a meeting somewhere that's introducing these reports and analytics. Think of these as sort of the people that are paying the highest amount, the folks that you want to impress the most, or you want to feed the very most carefully selected dishes to satisfy their needs, to open up the conversation in that table so that they can get to some critical decisions and helping them get to an outcome to drive your company forward. This is oftentimes what people are sold or what they think they get when they buy Salesforce, right? How many of you guys have ever experienced some kind of buyer's remorse when buying a technical product, seeing what you saw in the demo, and then you actually have it installed in your instance and you look at it and you say, wait a second, I thought I bought the Ferrari, and instead you're looking at something else, a bicycle. In a lot of cases, this is also the experience for a sales account rep. When they sort of are expecting sort of fine level dining service and they actually show up and they're just like, all right, what I need you to do is I need you to sort of make your own meal, service yourself, and here's all the reports. Because when the instructions to a sales rep that's getting onboarded is, well, if you need that report, what I need you to do is go to the reports tab, type in opportunity in the search and find, and just choose one of those reports and see what it's like. How many of you guys have had that experience where somebody's told you, go to the reports tab, type in the report you're looking for, and just find it? Anybody? Maybe not. Maybe this is something that only happened 13 years ago when I started. And when I type in opportunities, I get initially sort of reports from different people, from different stages, from different lines, and I have no way to sort of feed myself. So I'm in the kitchen, I'm looking through drawers, I'm looking in the back of the fridge, I'm trying to find the peanut butter, I'm trying to find the jelly, and I'm trying to put it together to say, my sales manager wants this report, I need to get my pipeline clear, I've got this committee meeting later on this day, and I don't know what to do. And the user at the end of the day is not satisfied, they're not happy, and they're not feeding themselves. And without feeding themselves, they're going to make decisions based on what? If I can't sort of see the information that I need real time with my Salesforce instance, I'm going to go back to that Excel file, back to that report that I built myself from scratch, and I'm going to sort of say, this is what I know because I've done it and I trust it. What does your menu look like today at a Salesforce level? When people are saying, hey, what kinds of reports and analytics can I get from my Salesforce instance? How many of you guys have a menu of some sort that you provide to your team? All right, let's go a little bit further. Let's say, all right, for your finance department, how many of you guys have a scenario where you actually might say, hey, for my forecast and forecast-related reports, I can either do the budget allocation forecast, maybe this committee over here needs the expense report audit, you know how long it's going to take, you know which tools you need to use to make it, you know how much time is required to sort of prep the meal and sort of serve it to them, and you know who needs to actually sort of provide that to them. One of the outcomes of a menu of reports or a menu that you might sort of consider for your team is it gives them a closed loop, right? You're not allowing them to sort of ask for things out in the sky that don't exist. You're saying, hey, here's what's available to you and here's what I can do today. So at a very baseline level, one of the options to approach your team with, either a committee level or even an executive level, is to say, here's what I have prepared for you, here's what you can have, and that allows them to say, based on all the information points that I see on screen, maybe I want to ask for the product launch brief, but I want to substitute, lamb for beef. Maybe in this other one, I want to ask if that risk assessment report can be vegetarian. Can you take the risk assessment report and only include the information from these three sort of sectors of our business? I don't want risk on this, this, and this instead. There's too much fat. It's going to take too long to talk about. I only need this sort of slimline version of it. But going to your team with a sense of options and sort of considering that they're a customer to be served changes the dynamic. And what I'm after here a little bit is sort of changing the way that you're thinking about your customers, changing the way that you service them, and getting a sense of is the actual thing that you're feeding them going to satisfy them or not? Because at the end of the day, what we're after is data literacy and decision-making abilities. All too often, sometimes this is where we're going to sort of go back to in a safe manner. We're going to say that, well, I know that so-and-so is going to ask me for that report, and I'm going to push them off as long as I can, but eventually I'm going to have to come out from behind the curtain like SpongeBob here and sort of fulfill their need. And my abilities as a Salesforce user, my abilities as a Tableau report writer, my abilities as a person that knows SQL is phenomenal because I want to make sure that I'm providing them something that they can handle. And a lot of other times, when they're not actually specific about what their needs are, they just keep asking for the same thing over and over again, right? Like we've all had the experience. I work explicitly in the reporting and data space, and the person just keeps coming to me with the same request over and over again, and I'm on screen with them, and I'm looking at all the objects, I'm looking at the tables, and I'm talking to them through it, and they say, well, I need this quarterly business report. I need the QBR here, or I need this P&L from this over here. And you sort of go back and forth, and all they say is, I just need the report. And they come back to you and say, but I don't know how to explain it to you. So there's an obfuscation level when a customer wants to come to a place and say, this is what I'm getting out of it. But instead, you're just giving them objects and tables and details. So what we want to do is we want to have a full sense of the customers you're servicing today. I'm trying to do a time check. Customers you're servicing today. You've got lots of options in front of you with Salesforce. It is a powerful platform. It is, how old are we today? 2025, Salesforce, the little copyright at the very bottom of the screen. Did you guys ever look at the copyright and see what it reads? What does the number read when you last looked at Salesforce in your login instance? How many of you guys are on your org right now? You go all the way to the bottom, it says copyright, and it says, does anybody know? The year of instantiation for Salesforce, 1999, at least the year their copyright sort of got developed. So 26 years of development, 26 years of tools, 26 years, 115,000 customers worldwide, millions of users logging in, and you've got lots and lots of options in terms of how do you think about these customers. And you've got lots of options to pick and choose how you demonstrate this to your team. Maybe they need to sort of be that sales user where you're sort of giving them ready to go reports and they can feed themselves. Maybe you want to do a fine dining. But there's lots of options in between. So my goal here is to stretch out the thinking and see what's possible for you. This is sort of my ultimate goal a lot of times. With teams and individuals that need to make decisions and consume and make information back and forth, you're both eating the information together on screen and you're eating together and making and sort of cogitating and cognitively like doing the load work together and saying, if we can't get this product specialized to sort of fit this niche need, then we need to move this product over here to fill that revenue gap fill, right? But you're doing that work with data on screen, in person, and hopefully, if you're sort of feeding each other along the way, there's better things that come out of it beyond just a report that finishes at the end of the meeting. You've actually sort of created value in that meeting together, making decisions together. Now, one of the ways we think about this is who are all the people that are in your kitchen? So if you guys were to say, hey, in our reporting services scenario, I'm actually in the kitchen. I'm one of the people that actually controls how people get data served to them. Raise your hand if you would say you're in the kitchen and you're one of the people that controls the data coming out of it. Raise your hand nice and high. Let me just sort of see who would you guys consider. All right, I'm in the kitchen. I'm in there. This lessons are for you. Essentially, you've got everybody from the executive chef, the sous chef, the prep chef, the line cook, the pastry chef, and the dishwasher, right? And there's no shame in any of these roles, but the expectation is there's a clear articulation of the value that you're supposed to provide and the way you're supposed to sort of support your team. At some org, this is also going to fit a similar mode of saying, hey, there's going to be some orgs out there that just have maybe 50 to 100 users, and you can sort of do a lot of this prep work yourself. Maybe these are self-service reports. How do we sort of handle scenarios where you're maybe in the crawl stage of the crawl, run, walk, fly methodology? In the kitchen, you're just maybe in the prep work stage where everything is sort of like data tables, everything is easy to understand. The next stage for us is sort of execution. Maybe you're a line chef and you're wanting to be able to say like, hey, I'm taking the data from these 2 to 3 different sources, I'm combining it well, and I'm servicing it out, right? I've got some automation, I've got some things happening. And there's a big point when maybe you move to sort of the mid-market and enterprise level, and you're actually aware, hey, I actually need to sort of create a consistent outcome for these reporting needs and make sure that everybody that needs a request is getting serviced, right? This is where you have so many staff on the back office that you're actually sort of managing those teams and managing the outcomes, even maybe to the end of where we're going to get with Tableau next. And we're going to be in a space where people are orienting towards, here's all the things that the AI surfaced for me. But as I sort of combine those different ingredients, as I created my own meal with Tableau Next and some agentic support, but now I'm still not at a point of decision. I still can't make that critical idea because I'm not able to pull those ingredients together to create, the piece de resistance. So my goal is to sort of like give you guys some sense of how to orient around this depending on where you're at in the life cycle. We don't consider that all restaurants are the same. There's a time when I'm happy to go into the bar over here and get a burger and fries. There's also times when I want to go out with my partner and I want to have maybe a finer meal. And there's times often when I step up from my desk, I go to my kitchen and I want to reheat some leftovers because I know they're going to feed me and they're going to give me what I need. In my Salesforce instance, in my role, I'm going to that place every day. I've got a sales DSU that I service my team with every day. I've got some sales performance metrics that I'm looking at. And then I've got some KPIs across the company that I'm looking at in our EOS model to say, here's the vital few of our scorecard and what I'm trying to service in the space. The way that I use the data in our Salesforce instance and then provide meals to each of those individuals references where I'm at in the stage and how the kitchen sort of services those needs. So I'm going to sort of broadly give you guys a crawl, run, walk, fly methodology, but instead substantiating, let me actually get to this one instead. Nope, not that one, forgive me. Instead, just give you the crawl, run, walk, fly methodology, but from prep work to execution to service and to innovation, okay? Some of you guys are going to be at the service stage. You've got lots of people building stuff for you. Some of you guys are going to be the solo admin or maybe working with a small group of report writers. Let's get into it together. So prep work, you're cutting vegetables, you're creating tables, you're going to outcomes. I'm going to skip this slide and move on to my next one and sort of talk through that a little bit more effectively. But we all know what prep work is. We know we have to sort of do the initial data work to clean these things up and get them up and running. And then at this point, we're actually able to say there's a stage further on the line where maybe you're combining different data sources, you're pulling information together in Salesforce, and maybe you're even following the steps of recipe. When it comes to actually having services and reporting teams, we often understand these are data sources that are coming outside of Salesforce on your data platform, your data stack. Maybe they're showing up for a short term, maybe they're coming in and out, and you're sort of servicing across a group of people, building out reports and delivering them to key users across your space. And then innovation, this is where we'd all love to be, and sometimes maybe there's spaces where there's really executive type meals, places where you need to curate a very clear analytic to a group of users, and you realize if you don't get it just right, they're going to be unsatisfied, they're going to give you some very clear feedback about it, and they're not going to be able to make decisions on how to lead the company moving forward. So this is my first translation layer from a kitchen staff to a Salesforce staff. So consider this if you work at a company, maybe if you're a consulting services company, maybe if you're a higher ed, maybe if you're a business, maybe you work in retail, these should apply. In the back office, you've got people doing prep work, data cleaning, review, design. There's going to be some serve yourself scenarios where some ingredients are available to people and you're making that self-serve on an as-needed basis. You're putting the reports in the folder, you're showing them how to use it, you're giving them some control to those filters and adjusting them from there. And then other scenarios, this working meeting oftentimes is where I see department heads. These are the folks that are leading the QBRs. They need to sort of handle conversations and get to details on a quick basis. They may or may not know the data like the back of their hand, but they're often needing to pull together the brains and the people that understand the data so they can make a decision and basically have a working meeting that fulfills their needs and helps them make decisions. Sometimes I think of these team members as directors or central meeting leaders. And then lastly, the executive kind of function is when you actually have somebody that's actually serving that report. A lot of my work early on in my career was nonprofits. This is sort of the end of year report, right? The annual review. The kinds of places when you actually have so much prep work, you've got weeks and weeks of effort sort of building all the analytics to report to board members, stakeholders, individuals to say, hey, this is the status of the company and where we're moving into the future. The potential for us as Salesforce analytics experts, as people in a kitchen, as people developing decision-making data and decision-making ideas, is you actually have the control here. To create the light bulb moment for each member of your staff members. And this is where I want to sort of just bridge the arch and say the next steps and sort of the recipes for you to take home should catalyze some kind of an outcome. If your experience with a report asker, and back to our Salesforce memes, your experience is always going to be sort of negative tinge, and you're just struggling with the experience of saying, this person just keeps asking for the same gosh darn thing. Why won't they just take what I gave them and run with it? Then you have to go back to the model and say, what kind of restaurant am I providing to them? Do they have a menu that I've serviced them with? Do they know how to get to this information? Do they feel confident in it? Are they actually using this report to make a decision? Or are they just accepting it, saying, great, I got the report from Justin, and now let me go use my Excel spreadsheet over here to actually make the decisions I need to do my job? Because Justin doesn't know what it's like to be a sales leader. You have the control to decide what you feed them. You have the control when and where to feed them in your Salesforce instance, maybe in third-party tools like Slack and dashboards. Big shout out to Aaron Crayer. If you guys missed Aaron's report or presentation yesterday on providing reports and dashboards in Slack, it's like easy money. Like, how do you help people be satisfied? You give them reports and analytics to make decisions exactly where they're doing DMing every day. You decide how you feed them. Is it a scheduled report? Is it an automation? Is it a clickable button? Is it a view-only report? Is it a folder? Is it an Excel file? You have all the controls at your disposal with the Salesforce product stack. And then even who feeds them. In some scenarios, you're actually going to sort of bring a meal to them and say, this is the information, here's the story the data is telling, here's what I can sort of take you through in this meal and how this meal is understood. And in some scenarios, you might just say, hey, like, this is the sales report, here's how you change the filters, here's how you make this work, and you let them control it and decide how to organize and orient around it. And the downside is pretty clear. I think some of you guys are sort of feeling the downside even as we're talking through it. They're looking at their numbers and they're like, WTF. They have no idea where to start. They have no idea where to begin. They can't make decisions from their data, and they're continuing to revert back to gut instinct. This is always the experience that I have as a consultant in my early years. You're giving information to people, you're configuring a solution, you're giving it to them, but if a year later they're still making decisions like gut instinct and the solution you built on Salesforce isn't servicing their need, you want to actually get to the critical point of how are they making decisions with what you're giving them. You've got control of your data, what comes into your Salesforce instance, how you have hands on it, what you touch, how fresh it is, how you curate it, how you manage it, how you take unstructured data and create structured data from it. And then you also have a kitchen. Now, right now, I've got Einstein popping up and having fun down there, but your kitchen might be sort of different places. Your kitchen might be in the back of a condo. Your kitchen might be, Chef Ramsay kind of style, anywhere in between. But you've got to sort of start with that sense of like, I've got food, and there's only so many things I can create with so many food options, and I've got a kitchen. There's only so many analytics I can create. You can't create sort of what's a really fancy meal? Like a filet mignon on a PB&J kind of like counter, right? To create a filet mignon, you need to have different kinds of outcomes. And as you guys scale with sort of decision makers and what they need, the hope is that you have some more language to sort of orient towards what the options are and what you can feed them with. So to start with that, we're going to just say we want to service Salesforce literacy, Salesforce data literacy in particular. And we want to take them through a sort of a series of different kitchen levels. So back to my crawl, run, walk, fly methodology. I'm going now to sort of the similar methodology, but to the kitchen experience, because we want to understand that data is like food and your kitchen is Salesforce. To that end, the first thing that you're going to do is say, hey, I've probably got an admin level. Then you might have a senior admin level. Then you might have a Salesforce product owner that sort of helps you manage that data instance. And then lastly, you might have an architect that's doing some of that stuff. So you might be at different stages along this economy. You might be at different points in a scale for a department or maybe a particular office of your organization. So feel free to sort of use these to adjust and handle outcomes as people are saying, well, I want to be at the executive chef level. And when you're having conversations with them, you really clearly allow them to say, right now, we're actually more at the line cook level. Like this is the kind of reporting we're creating on a regular basis. But to start with, I'm going to start with my prep cooks. This is where everybody starts with Salesforce. If you logged into an instance and you went to the reports tab and you went to your Salesforce admin options, you got admin certified, and you said, here's all the things that I can build to service the needs of my users. This is just a basic review of saying, hey, this is an environment that I have. I can go to my setup tab, and anything I can sort of think of or find on Trailblazer community, I can build with just vanilla Salesforce out of the box. Any instance, any cloud, any architecture. The goal is essentially for me is that these prep cooks sort of say, hey, there's some centralizing functions you're orienting towards. You're maybe one person or two people. You've got limited tools available to your options. You're going to want to take Salesforce out of the box and make it incredible. And this is going to include making it as easy to manage as possible. So every place where a training shows up, every time when they export a report from a Lightning report, you want to make sure that they export the report, they get to the HTML file, they can save as Excel, and then they can use it from there. You want to be able to take those Salesforce reports and maybe port them when and where you need them and saying, hey, if you really just need this report on a standard basis, maybe you take that report and embed it in a formula field. How many of you guys have taken the hack of saying, hey, here's a URL. I've hacked the URL of the particular report. It's in a view-only folder so people can't change it. And then you've attached that URL link into a formula field, put it on a detailed record page, and when they push that formula link, out pops the report on a second window, but it's just for that report, just for that detailed records outcomes. You guys ever use a formula link report hack? Yeah. Simple method, doesn't cost anything extra. You can adjust it and change it as much as you want, and you've got some build with how many formula fields you want to create. You basically want to make sure that table-based review is within easy reach. There are some great tools out there in the Salesforce space. The Salesforce connector is the one out of the box with Google Suite that works. There's other versions like ZapX and others that sort of allow you to sort of say, if I can give my people data and access to data like Excel, then most of their problems are solved. If the data that they need is built behind 3 or 4 different levels of reports and they have to weed through a bunch of reports, they're not going to like that. So entirely self-service, building tools for scale or for scalable use across the board. And then when people say, hey, I need to change information, I need to get information up to date, you're going to lean into things like inline editing in your reports. You're going to lean into scheduled dashboard snapshots. You're going to say, hey, when and where you sort of need this, you're going to pull some things out of your back pocket, like Felix and his bag of tricks, and say, here's what I can offer you, here's what Salesforce gives you out of the box, and sort of provide that sense of menuable option to give analytics to your team, just with all the things that Salesforce includes at the enterprise version. I'm going till 10, is that right? 10:05, okay. I am all over the place with time sometimes. So this is where a lot of times I see from the translation from prep cooks up to prep and line cooks. Sometimes this is a big swing. This is where you've got Salesforce, somebody made a commitment in your organization to buy Salesforce or to move, to reorg, and now you're like, now I need to sort of move this on a little bit more. This is where I see Steve Moe show up all the time. Like, if you've not heard of Steve Moe, you go find him on the Trailblazer community, but he's sort of like the Martha Stewart of report writing. Like half of his solutions and recipes are all formula based, and the other half of them is he's picking apart sort of a report writer and saying, here's what you do have, here's what you don't have. I don't think you know what it is because you're trying to make tuna tartare, but there's actually no fish in the kitchen. So like really clearly giving people some expectations around their objects and what they can build. So you're going to push those out to the Trailblazer community and say, what are the recipes that people already have? You're going to pull report charts maybe if you're a line cook and say, I'm going to embed this report chart on a Salesforce detailed record page and make sure you can use it right away. How many of you guys have used analytic snapshots, a standard experience out of the box in your setup page? Yep. Here's a custom object. Let me grab a custom object, load it with some really custom data on a timed basis, use that as an analytic snapshot, and then have a snapshot I can provide ready-made to my executives without having to buy anything extra, without having to port it to a third-party environment, and using a lot of the Salesforce features out of the box. Custom report types is probably where I spend and often spend 60% of my time in terms of report building or orienting. How many of you guys use report types, specific custom report types that you built on a daily basis to satisfy the needs of your team? Yeah, it's expected. Salesforce started 26 years ago. And 26 years of development in the tech space is like, it's like the opposite of dog years. It's like a factor of like 4x. So like 25 years of development is like 100 years of development in the world. And 100 years ago, in our economy of practical things, did we have cars? Like, does anybody know? Did we have cars 100 years ago? 1925? We had cars. Did we have... We don't have, I know I'm going really wild here a little bit, so forgive me. But 100 years of like the cars from then to the helicopters that are flying people and drone like architecture from like Boston and New York today, it's just like it boggles the mind. And this is sort of what's happening in the tech space too. I think we can't sort of see it as well because not all of us are building technology products and maybe have or have not worked for Salesforce. But there's a lot into Salesforce out of the box that you can sort of just pull out and start using. And there's a lot of development that was built to sort of fit your needs. Custom report types are essentially the best way that we can use Salesforce to sort of manage all those really broad tables across all these instances and satisfy them before you move to Tableau, right? And Tableau is incredible, but Tableau is not for everybody, and not everybody knows how to use Tableau, right? Not everybody is a report writer. So custom report types, building these over and over again is one of your best ways to sort of provide these reports out of the box. Trend reporting, field histories on opportunities, stage histories, chat or field tracking, any ways to sort of say, here's the changes that are happening on your data, salesperson, and here's where I want to sort of bring your attention to like, these are key changes that you're not aware of, and as you see it coming through, I need to bring it to your attention. For us, the big push on how to be more user-specific here is you're sort of a line cook orienting a set of reports and then distributing to your team. My expectation is that you wouldn't sort of just put all these reports in a big bucket and say to a customer base, hey, whenever you guys are ready and you're coming in, just everybody come up to the front of the office and then sort through this bucket of reports and do the best you can to find the one you need and then pull out that one report and then go back to your desk. The goal is you actually start to supply them with their needs when they want to make a decision. So detailed record pages, anywhere they're on a detailed record page, they need to make a decision, what can you supply them with? Can you give them a button? Can you give them a view-only report? Can you give them access to a link through a Lightning report and pop that out? Can you give them sort of anything that lets them to say, hey, I'm on the record page, I'm ready to make a decision, I need this analysis? That's one big push for line cooks. And then beyond that, our goal is to say anywhere where you can sort of take recipes, reports, put them in a view-only report, or report folder that you have access to and no one else does, and then in your trainings, standardize that and say, hey, here's the report that's ready-made for your finance team. Here's the report ready-made for marketing. All you need to do is take it, click on Save As, create your own version, and you're good to go. But the goal is to bring layers of abstraction down and make it simpler and simpler for your team to be effective. Moving into reporting services, this is where you start to look for economies of scale and growing your team and growing the outcomes of your reporting team. How many of you guys are servicing reports through some sort of a queue today? So when people say, hey, I have a report request, do they just raise their hand and Slack you ever, like eternally until you respond to them? Or do you guys satisfy this through some sort of a queue or a ticketing system? Raise your hand if you have some sort of report request system that lives in your Salesforce instance or outside of it. So I see about 15 hands now, okay. This is just demand gen, right? Like you're just trying to manage demand. So at this point of the stage, you're trying to say like, how do I quickly and essentially handle this? And as certain people with certain abilities or certain weight in your organization will make stands and say, we need Tableau, and we need CRMA, and we need Microsoft Power BI. And then you'll just have this like Costco version of like the biggest tools to do anything and everything that you want. But the kitchen that you're trying to manage is quickly becoming a little out of control. And your streamlining focuses should be to say, how do I manage the demand? The first way is to do a ticketing queue. The second way is to say, how well is your ticketing queue servicing your team? Do you have sort of scaled scaled versions of reports? Are the reports that are sort of end user focused and don't need to sort of get a lot of hand-holding or specific service? Are those sort of pushed out in a certain way, on a certain cadence, made available through self-service reporting or through weekly check-ins or weekly webinars internally to your team? For those of us that need, or for those of the reporting meetings that are more working focused or more executive styled, do you have a specific way that those are handled as well, right? So across your report ticketing system, my expectation is you're sort of variegating the assignment rules and who and how get those reports and how you held those. The other big one for me is how to sort of understand food trucks, or as I like to call them, information that's coming outside of Salesforce into Salesforce to satisfy the needs of your users. You've got folks that are saying, well, we need that data from over here, and the only way to get it was to sort of get this data lake or that tool or this version of Data Cloud to pull that in. But the expectation for your user is they're just business team members, right? They just need the information in front of them to make a decision. So in whatever ways that particular tool, it could be an extra Salesforce platform tool, it could be a Salesforce platform tool, shows up in their day-to-day in their UI, think about that food truck experience. Sometimes we all drive to a food truck location and say, hey, let me go to a food truck place, let me see all the options I have, and sort of picking and choosing which analytic I want to sort of make the best decision, pull that analytic, feed myself and my team, and then go away. In some scenarios, you might have a food truck drive in, set up shop in a particular committee, a particular department, a particular user group, and say, here's the food truck for you. But they're driving in, they're servicing a specific set of needs, and this is where you can sort of use your menu methodology again. You say, hey, this food truck, this BI tool is not for all the Tom, Dick, and Harry kind of ideas you have. It's only for these three, right? These report requests that are coming out of this team or these outcomes, those are the only ones we're servicing. Everybody else, we're back to Salesforce. But the different options that you guys have as sort of kitchen connoisseurs or kitchen chefs should give you ways to sort of orient this. And then lastly, the executive chef. This is where we'd love to be, but oftentimes there's space here and there that we just can't get to that point because our demand is pulled towards feeding our teams, and those teams are often very, very hungry. And when they come to us, they're not satisfied quickly or easily. So we're sort of consistently coming back to them. At Salesforce on-stack point solutions, you might have tools beyond the BI tool methodology, and they might sort of be porting this information into select tables or into select spaces in Salesforce for you. In other scenarios, you might just sort of say, hey, we need to sort of custom code the solution. We need to take the table in Salesforce, run the reports, run the queries, pull it all together there using one of our tools, and then sort of provide that information ready to go out of Salesforce or intra-Salesforce. Tableau Next is going to be where this lives. I've seen the demos. Have any of you guys doing any demos or in early talks with Tableau Next? I can't wait for it. Like, I can't wait to sort of see the space where I can sort of take the tables of data across the space, chat with a widget, have the analyses being performed side by side with my own thinking, and see what comes out of it. But the expectations here is you're sort of going for a really key piece of information that you can't get any other way. And you're needing to sort of challenge your expectations about what's possible. You're needing to use AI in the future and saying the AI is sort of doing the grunt level reporting and sort of pulling out some of these pieces of information and intelligence for me. And then you're taking that and you're saying, this is all coming together in a very clear way where I want to bring this service, this piece of information that's for a person to think through and make decisions on, I want to pull that at a sort of an executive level. So usually this is sort of a 10x level of effort, and you're willing to do it because the team that you're servicing makes decisions that affects your livelihood. It affects the future of the company, the vision, those kinds of things. And then lastly, simplicity and performance. A lot of times you're often able to say, as you scale to user personas, you're able to sort of fold off certain kitchens. Hey, this kitchen of reporting functionality is for this team, and this team is aimed at focusing on these items over here. You're able to sort of pull full sort of kitchens or sides of the kitchen towards very specific analytics and needs. So from my perspective, the goal was to sort of give a broad overview of a lot of these outcomes in a space that sort of lets us think through it differently, approach it differently. At a starting point, you're somewhere in this process. There's no shame in being anywhere in the process or saying, here's where I need to sort of fit a user persona role, or I need to satisfy the needs of a particular person. But somebody in the kitchen and in control of your data and in control of your analytics, this is where you're able to sort of set that tool as appropriately. Beyond that, the goal is you're actually able to sort of satisfy your team's needs. You're actually not in charge of just report writing. Like, report writing is just sort of like the order taker when the person comes to your table and says, all right, what are we having today, folks? And they say, well, I want ham and cheese, I want PB&J, I want a filet mignon. They sort of take all these orders, and then there's some back and forth between the server or between the waiter and come into the table. And as they go back and forth, they take all the report requests and then they go back to the kitchen and give them to them. But again, that's sort of menu related. That's where you're deciding, what do I avail in my team? Do they know what's available to them to sort of make decisions? And that server's experience with that table is even sort of giving you a sense of like, do they know what's possible to them? Do they know if only they could see this information and make decisions on it, they'd be a much more powerful team. So you might be early stages. You might be in the descriptive analytics space where you're just making decisions and reports on past predictors of behavior. You might be leading into some AI and some predictive models to say, hey, how do we actually use this with our experience of the behavior of our customers today and make that for the future? Or you might be all the way back here in just data accessibility, and your people just need their data in Excel and need a simple and easy way for them to have their data in Excel to clean it up every day and make use of it. My hope is that this presentation sort of just stretched out the mindset of like what's possible and how to do it. My desire is that as you guys sort of look to sort of provide a service to your team, it's not a service just based on a report request. You're not sort of taking people's needs and saying, hey, as long as I fill this out and check that box, then I'm happy. My expectation is that you actually move through a series of sort of kitchen builds, and that as those kitchen builds are finished, you're actually able to say, I'm actually able to service a whole set of needs in the organization that the people would use. There's a sense right now that you're a report writer, you're satisfying needs, you're an IT team member, you're the Salesforce admin. My goal is that you would transform the way you think about your work and saying, if you can bring decision-making autonomy to every team member across your organization, you would be more valuable than AI. And that ability is in your fingertips if you sit in the Salesforce space and you have control over these tools. That being said, thank you so much for your attention. Would love to connect with you on LinkedIn if you have questions or comments beyond that state, and hope to see if you have questions right now. In terms of sort of a grilling kind of methodology, my big hopes for the weekend are to get out the grill and do some grilling with my kids. So if you guys have any grillable kinds of outcomes and you really want to stick it to me, I'm sorry, I'm going to run out of dad jokes at some point, but it may not be today. Would love some questions, and Marty gratefully is going to bring out the mic. So,
anybody have a question? Let's get into it.
I'm also happy for comments or aha moments or light bulbs. So have no shame in pitching something to me.
I have kind of a specific question on Tableau Next and CRM analytics. Like you mentioned Tableau Next, you're excited for it, obviously. I was curious if you had any like thoughts or guesses on the future of like CRMA since Tableau Next is coming out. Like, do you see it kind of just going away? Do you think it's still going to be around? What's the use case for both, I guess?
I do believe it's going away. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to make any safe harbor statements since I don't represent Salesforce directly. That being said, there is a lot to be said about diving into like some of the research I did for this was just taking some tables from my instance around like just we do a lot of client review. We're a 1,800 customer org. We've been around for 13 years. I do a lot of focus on where can I create the greatest value for our customers. And I just grab some tables, I throw them into ChatGPT. I anonymize them with some custom unique IDs so there's no names. I just throw them in ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT questions to see what is the AI options of an LLM today. And then as I think about an agentic experience or a Tableau Next, what do I actually expect from Salesforce to provide at a higher level of like Salesforce branded or Salesforce report experience beyond what I can get myself from a free product?
That's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Question to the gentleman next.
All right. I'm going to stick with the culinary terminology here.
Awesome.
So yeah, my kitchen right now isn't cutting it. I have a boutique kitchen right now, small cutting boards and everything, but I've got wholesale level quantities of data or ingredients coming in. Mm-hmm. My knives are too small. I don't have enough tools right now to really do the prep work needed. Mm-hmm. So right now, back to more Salesforce language. Right now, I have Excel, mm-hmm. which not a huge fan of for really prepping that data. Mm-hmm. I've really like Google BigQuery and those sorts of just cloud versions of SQL databases where I can go ahead and just upload CSV files, which I have, and put those into cloud-based, like the cloud-based options. Mm-hmm. So struggling right now to deal with sensitive data while not having to set up a whole MySQL or like a whole database. Wanted to hear just like any other options that I'm not seeing that I can really go into this data with like a low scale approach.
Justin, this might be a good time to plug Persona.
Yeah, so a lot of the needs that I service with our application, our product in the space it's a Salesforce-centric approach, right? So the data never leaves Salesforce. I'm going to just broadly try to satisfy your question about minimize your security risk and saying on-prem or in org is one way to do it, right? So all of your data stays in org and never leaves. That's an initial state, right? So, but we know that Salesforce tools are going to hit a limit. Once you go to like that second source, could be your spreadsheets file, could be a Google Drive, right? Like out of the box. The functionality that I'm hearing from you is mostly clean up initially, right? So prep work, you're prepping the data, getting it cleaned up. Salesforce is not meant to cut all of those things, right? Tableau has some tools around that end as well, like Tableau prep before you actually get to the satisfying the users, satisfying the needs. But I would say you're broadly looking at ZapX, Tableau Next, GridMate. You're looking at a bunch of tools that basically get you your hands on the data. And whether you want to do that in Salesforce only, or whether you want to do that at Google Sheets or another sort of compliance specific or sense that you can do that. There's big enough platforms out there that do that. And I would just reference that Excel is the language of business. So anybody that you're working with is going to assume that Excel can help handle those items up to the point when you're using SQL queries to sort of clean up your data and review it. At that point, you're in a different namespace. So I would say out of the box, you're looking at Salesforce connector that comes with Google Drive, ZapX with Microsoft Office, and just looking at those specific ones that like other teams have built or the project themselves have built and sort of orienting towards those. I heard mostly data cleanup and awareness, so if I missed an option around reporting and reporting builds out, happy to speak to that next.
Yeah, it's more for me to like clean up the data and make sure that I'm actually, speaking the right information to and providing that right information to the clients and really aggregate that data. Less about like actual visualizations.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess that
I mean, free, you just choose Salesforce connector. I've experimented with a bunch, but it moves into Google Sheets, your Google Drive in that instance, not all authentication happens. But yeah, out of the box, I live in the Apsona space where we satisfy our customers with that exact same namespace because it's needed. You just need to keep cleaning data like all the time, and you want people to do it. AI is going to do some of it well, but you need people to sort of sign off on it before you bring it and serve it to someone.
Yeah, there's just a lot of personal like PII information, so I just don't want to. I have to be compliant with that information. So
you're just always looking at like PCI compliant tools that stay in Salesforce, but oftentimes Salesforce is enough. You don't actually need to leave the data from Salesforce if you can find a tool that keeps your data in Salesforce.
Cool. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a budget?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you guys should exchange some info.
Yeah, and there's great tools out there, right? Like this is a rich space. I think sometimes forgive me, I'll use the word hype because it does feel like hype, right? Like when you go to Dreamforce, it feels like a circus. Like I love it, but the circus takes it out of you. Like there's only so many strong men in the circle you can sort of see battling it out for stuff. So out in the space, there's just a lot of hype and there's a lot of speed. And oftentimes the people that get left behind are the folks that just need to clean data to make it accessible and understandable to folks. And Excel is still going to be there, but oftentimes we just don't want to have people keep cleaning up data in Excel and leaving it on their PCs and then showing it to their teams. Like we actually want to give them tools to do this better. So the baseline level, your satisfaction is, can people see their data? Can they understand their data? Can they make decisions on it? Just at a single table or a two-table level, a lot of times I just try to get really simple to the baseline of what your team can do because that's the foundation of data literacy, is data accessibility. Other questions?
Any other questions?
Or comments, ideas, ways to make my presentation better? No worries. I'm happy to close up shop. You guys were a wonderful group. Really appreciate the hand raising. Like a lot of times these tools and these needs are sort of so broad and so weird across the space that a culinary approach and saying to people like, hey, how do I feed you today? Like people don't always get down with that. So as ideas come up, as thoughts come up, please let me know. My goal is to create value in the space. This has been an incredible space for me. I've been here for 13 years. Love what I do and just looking for ways to help others do more of it. So have a wonderful day and thank you all.
Find your flow, follow the map. Mile high dreaming's got your back. Denver skies, trailhead pride. This is your moment.